His movies are bad, they're terrible, they're awful.
They're not good.
Did the criticism really bother you that much where you wanted to pummel them?
A lot of directors congratulated me.
You're like Rosa Parks.
Like saying, I wish I could kick the shit out of this guys too,
Oh, of
whatever.
course.
And
Were there certain films or filmmakers that inspired you growing up that made you want to make films?
yeah, I mean, I grew up with a lot of American movies, like the classics from like John Ford, William Wyler, this kind of like the generation, the war generation, basically. Love westerns with John Wayne and so on, and uh, and then later Scorsese, Coppola, Spielberg, in their early work, it was clear that they bring a new kind of film into Hollywood. You know, this was basically the generation after like the Alfred Hitchcock and this kind of classical directors. But they very much inspired me to, I want to make movies. You know, this kind of like French Connection, Goodfellas, The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, all this kind of the 80s and 90s, this kind of movies, they really put the stamp on me like that I wanted to make films.
Okay. And you've been at it for decades now, had a lot of success. Now, those movies obviously inspired you and you wanted to make films. When you got into the actual process of making them, producing, directing, what did you find the most enjoyable thing about filmmaking?
Actually shooting the film. So, you know, I know a lot of directors that say, I love the editing or whatever, right? So, I mean, of course, editing, I think editing is boring. So, you know, I could not sit there 10 hours in the editing room. I always hire editors who know what they're doing. And then I just look into it every few days. You know, I give them, of course, my, like, first of all, we have the script. Second of all, I tell him that I think should be definitely in it, but then I give them a little free range, and then I interfere and you know and say, look, I think that scene should come before that other scene, stuff like this. And but I'm not the guy like Scorsese was sitting months and months in editing rooms for his movies, and I just could not do this. You know, it would be like because you always have to wait for every little clip changing. It's like 20 minutes to get it reloaded and in, and I'm not patient enough. And then no, I love to be on set with the actors actually doing it, like making a movie. That's the my preferred thing. And the because I'm a producer myself, the pre-production financing process, script development, yeah, it's totally necessary. And it's of course it's like 80% of my time is this, but it's hard and frustrating. You know, it's just kind of like it's so tough to get the money together. It's so tough to get like things going that, and you so many disappointments that people don't get it. That you have a good project or something, and that it's a lot of frustration work on your computer, basically. You know, so where you email and have Zoom calls and trying this and trying that. Yeah.
I've experienced that a little myself. I'll tell you more a little bit later because I
Yeah.
want to pick your brain about a few things. This is why I love doing these interviews. You know, I learned so much myself because I get to talk to successful people who've done a lot of great things in the film world, and you know, I talked to a lot of martial arts people done great things in the martial arts world, etc. It's what I love about this channel. Was there a moment in your career? Well, of course, there had to have been a moment, but can you tell us or explain where you know you're making these films? And then there's a certain point you figure, you know what, I made it. Of course, everybody knows House of the Dead and other things. And but
Yeah.
was that the moment? Was it before? Was it after? Where you're like, you know what, I made it. I'm successful. I'm a filmmaker. This people know me for this, and you know.
Yeah, it would be nice if I would have, but it's like this kind of, I was never really felt and still to say I'm there, I'm did it, you know, like so. But I have to remind me to be a little more calm, you know, because I'm a very like impatient, like I want to do this, I want to do that. So so, but it's better that I'm actually should step back from a moment also from time to time and say, look, I did a lot of movies.
Right, well, that's what I meant.
You know, from
Yeah.
Jason Statham, Burt Reynolds, whatever, like I told Oscar-winning actors in my movies and so on. I should be a little more happy about my career, but it's you know, it's kind of tough to not feel okay, but I want to do this movie now, and why I don't get it financed. So that's the same, you know, you're happy, but you're also always driven and still eager and hungry. I'm really that mix of a personality that I know I did a lot of things, and a lot of people think, "Wow, what this guy did is unbelievable." But I also was in a way never super accepted by Hollywood, super accepted by film critics, for example, and so that of course is still a little nagging from time to time. But at one point, you have to get over it also, you know, where you feel like, okay, you cannot make everybody happy. And if I make more genre films, action films, video game based films, horror films, I did a lot of genres, but I don't do the genre what film critics love. You know, I just don't do drama in a way. You know, I'm not really doing this kind of family romantic comedies or something, and I'm not doing this kind of art house drama what wins the Cannes Film Festival. So, and then you're always this kind of like not so loved by the normal reviewers.
Okay. Okay, so you kind of explained what I was going to ask about the main reason why certain critics may have panned your films.
His movies are bad. They're terrible. They're awful.
Now, did the criticism really bother you that much where you wanted to pummel them, or was that more for like publicity stunt type thing with the boxing matches?
Both. No? It was so like I used the situation to make shitloads of publicity, to make a point. A lot of directors congratulated me, like saying, "I wish I could kick the shit out of this guy's too,"
Of
whatever.
course.
And but it was also kind of a revenge. And I mean, a lot of reviewers are kind of sloppy, right? So they're kind of like watch a movie, they write a review in 30 minutes and say that guy should never made a movie. You know, stuff like this, like very harsh things also. And in that boxing fights, in the very end, after the fights, I didn't say it a lot to the audience, but I said, look, if I would prep my movies like this guy's prepped the boxing fights, then there would be no movies at all. You know, it's like because this kind of sloppiness that they just took this kind of, okay, I get a free trip to Vancouver, I boxed the ball, you know, and they don't even, I think one or two trained a little, but most of them were just full of shit, and they thought they can wing it or whatever.
I did not come to kick ass. I came here for the free trip to Vancouver.
You know, so and then they were surprised that I went after that. You know, I told them before, like that's real boxing. I said, I'm not going in a ring and we have 800 people there in the crowd, right? I said, like, I'm not like dancing around and we make here a movie bullshit. I said, you better defend yourself. You know, you better I will go after you. So, and I think they were not really aware what that means. But I felt like a lot of reviewers, they should take their job more serious. And when you see House of the Dead, Alone in the Dark, Blood Rain, In the Name of the King, or Far Cry, whatever, for a lot of these movies, I got basically exactly the same review. But they're totally different movies with different casts, different genres, you know. And I felt like, okay, guys, are you actually watching that films, or you just use your old review and you copy paste, you change the title, you put it. Yeah. So that was very disappointing for me.
So I haven't really seen a full movie, but I don't really think that I need to have even seen a full movie to judge it.
You know, because I think In the Name of the King with Jason Statham is, of course, a way bigger and better movie as House of the Dead.
Sure.
You know, so, and it was a little like, you feel like there's a little injustice to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like critics in general just want to make themselves feel smarter than like the filmmaker. So they'll pan a film because I think in their head they probably hope, or maybe some of them maybe even think they could do better. You don't just become great at anything. Like when they were boxing you, for example, like, oh yeah, I go in there, I'll just throw some punches, I'll be fine. But you know how tough boxing is, obviously. I know how tough boxing is. I've been training boxing a lot. I was actually going to have an exhibition match against Sugar Shane Mosley. That was supposed to
Wow.
happen in London on July 25th. We did press conferences and everything, but a lot of boxing promotions are pretty shady. So that fell through. But as far as boxing goes, like, what's your history with the sport? How long have you been training? Because obviously you knew what you were doing in there. That's why you know, had very, very nice wins and got to get something out of your system, which I'm sure it's very satisfying.
Yeah, I went in Leverkusen, by Leverkusen at that point, to the amateur club when I was like 17, 18. I started late in a way. And but then I really took it serious. And for, you can say, 5, 6 years, I really trained 5 times a week. And I did fights and everything. So I was really in it. And that club at that point had a lot of boxers. They made it later professional too. Like Felix Sturm boxed Oscar De La Hoya in Las Vegas later. He was, and I know him since he's 10. Did like hundreds of sparrings with him, but I was older as him at that point. So it was like, he was not a threat for me at that point, right? So, but then he grew up, and Darius Michalczewski is a Tiger, world champion in half heavyweight, for, I think 48-0 he had. I mean, there were like a lot of people in that club. When you do sparring with this kind of caliber all the time, then you cannot be like, if it goes then, like, for example, when I went to Vancouver and lived in Vancouver a lot, I went to boxing there too, but it was easier for me because they were not on that level. So that, better boxers with you in the ring, so you're not getting really totally thrown off by the Vancouver amateur boxers or something, because they were just not skilled enough. So that's the thing. I took it really serious, and even when I started working in a different town, I came always at least Saturdays. I drove back to the training, and yeah, I love boxing. It brought me a lot of discipline, as any, I think, fighting sport is different. As I played handball also, I was a good runner, whatever. But the fighting is, I think, something what you really, it's in you for the rest of your life, because you also know you're completely alone responsible for what is happening here now, and you cannot blame a team. Soccer players can always say, "Fuck this goalie," whatever, right? So, but in the ring, it's just you, and then yeah, you have also, and I had that a lot, especially in sparrings, where you have people they just clearly better. They boxed since they're 8. They did 140 amateur fights, and they're clearly better. But what I learned also, and I think that's very helpful in general, is how to not get killed in the ring, right? So how you basically get you a little out of the range and out of the, when it's a left-handed, you just go the other way around. Like this kind of things, they're automatically in me. And when I did that fight with the reviewers, I went, of course, before to training in Vancouver too, with a lot of people. And I think that's a real asset when you have this routine with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sparring fights. Then you can also like kind of survive something. You're not like stupid, and that you have a lot when you see the professionals. Sometimes when people just running into the fucking heavy hand, or and also like when you have people coming into boxing, we had that a lot. The people came to the training, and then they're totally aggressive, and they want to kick ass, right? And they're bodybuilders or whatever, right? So, but then they getting absolutely destroyed in their first sparrings because they are aggressive. If you go against a very good boxer and you want to kill him, but you cannot really box, like this kind of like just to try to kill him, then this guy will punish you, right? So he will like let you wear yourself a little out, and then he will like start hurting you. And that's the mistake I think what a lot of people did. They didn't have the respect, and they went there and think, I kicked this guy's ass because I feel stronger, and I did like street fighting or something. Some people. But if you have a fist fight in a bar, it's mostly 2 shots. You don't need cardio. You don't need a strategy. It's just like you go for it, right? So, but and these people were like, I saw so many people getting pummeled, then they never came again. They feel like embarrassed. and then
Sure.
they don't go anymore. They don't come. And I went through all of this, and yeah, as I said, I love boxing. I think it's the most honest kind of thing. UFC too. These are honest sports. It's really there's no excuse basically.
It's very, very relatable. Like you said, unlike soccer, it's like boxing. You're the only one in there. I mean, of course, you have your team that you train with and everything else, but they're not in there to help you. You're
Yeah.
basically fighting. And a lot of people kind of have that and went through, it's me against the world type thing. So it's so relatable in general in life. And you could just take, you know, for example, with filmmaking, you're fighting to try to raise money to make a film. You're fighting to try to finish a film. You're fighting to stay on time, on budget. Life's always a fight and struggle. And that's why boxing is just, it's such a beautiful thing because it's so relatable to anything that we're trying to do in our lives. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I
when you
enjoy
have
quite a bit.
this, but when you have this, and you have it also the fighting background and so on, I think we are more disciplined also on sets, and we also don't like throw the towel in, right? So when the shit hits the fan and you have a problematic shoot or whatever problematic situation, I think we get going, and not like, oh, now it gets exhausting. I'm done or something. No, it's like, I mean, especially when you come from independent filmmaking, like me, there is no 12-hour day. Like you give a shit. Like we have to get that in the can and stuff like this, where you're not like this kind of laid back, oh, it doesn't matter. Now we continue tomorrow. No, it's like you have to get the stuff done, and you push the crew, you push the other actors. You say, look, guys, let's speed it up. I know we're tired, but we can do this, right? So stuff like this. And I think there sports helps enormous to get that mindset, what I've
Yeah,
felt.
I would say just from talking to you right now, boxing has made you a better film director.
Yes, 100%.
It's funny. So you were kind of ahead of your time in a way where you had, because I was reading about it, when it was happening, when you were going to do it, and I was like, that's a genius idea. This filmmaker guy, Uwe, is actually going to fight his critics. Like that's a fight I want to see. Like, so what do you think about the popularity of like these influencer and celebrity boxing matches versus traditional professional boxing?
Yeah, I mean, that's of course the Jake Pauls of this
Oh, he
world.
started it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say he made a huge development into boxing skills. When I watched the first stuff from him or his brother, I felt like, why somebody should watch this? That's ridiculous, right? So you really felt like that's total bullshit. And if you would go in a ring against like a guy who is now on top of the game, then
Sure.
he would be knocked out very fast. But he really took it serious. He really trained for years and years and years, and I think he got the maximum out of it. The fight against Joshua was, of course, like I was very surprised because the thing is, you feel like first, is he crazy?
A
But
little
I mean,
bit.
because Joshua is not retired. He's not like you box Mike Tyson, who doesn't have the cardio anymore for more than a minute. And it was clear that Joshua will kill him basically, right? And I think you felt that Joshua could went for it very fast. But as he said in the interview, he wanted to teach him a lesson basically. But I think Jake Paul showed sportsmanship. He
Definitely.
was so much smaller. He tried his best. He took the knockout. The jaw was broken. He didn't wind around, right? So, and I think he's still totally overpaid, of course, but it doesn't matter. So, and I felt like if you make this kind of exhibition fights with like celebrities, then it should not be. Then it should be like this fight was, that it's not a total show. And the feeling him fighting Tyson was that was just bullshit. I looked at that fight, I looked at live, like so many others, and I was like, oh my God, that's the worst thing I ever saw. I mean, you have Tyson not really trying, super exhausted. He also not really trying. It was just they danced around there basically.
Yeah, and it hit the biggest streaming numbers, biggest
Ever.
audience ever because it was such a circus, such a freak show. It would have been nicer if the fight actually played out a little bit more like a real fight. And what made it more disappointing is because the lead up to it were just the other fights on the card were so great and so aggressive. And then we get to the
Yes.
main event, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? What did we just watch here? Right? That this is ridiculous. But I agree with you as far as his fight against Joshua. That's very brave. And we knew Joshua, since he's still in his prime, since he still wants a title shot. He's actually fighting Tyson
Nice.
Fury
Yeah.
on Netflix coming up. But he had too much to lose. Whereas, like, if Tyson lost the fight, well, Tyson's almost 60 years old. He's already proven himself, 3 decades ago. It doesn't really matter so much because he doesn't have to do anything in the fight world after, whereas Joshua does. So if Joshua didn't beat Jake Paul, if it went to decision, it's just like people start questioning Joshua, and being in his prime and wanting to fight for titles still, that would just kill his career. So it is funny that Jake Paul did do that fight almost last minute replacement, because he was supposed to fight Tank Davis. So he was supposed to fight a guy who's still active and younger, but is like a fraction of the size. Like Tank
Yeah.
Davis is like half the size of Paul. So it's like, okay, Paul would do okay. I mean, Tank would probably outpoint him, but he's not going to break his jaw, for example, right? So it is cool that Jake to salvage the event. He's still got a big name and a guy he should have never fought, because Jake would be a good cruiserweight contender. There's no way he's competing realistically against a legit current active heavyweight. But he went through with
Tank
it.
Davis is like 40 pounds, 50, 60 pounds lighter as him, right? So that didn't make any, or 40 pounds. But what I think, for example, if they really do Tyson Mayweather, I don't even know I want to watch this because that's so absurd, right? So, I mean, first of all, you have Mayweather, or same thing like Tank Davis, like this kind of like very weight-wise is already a no match. And then they're both in it only for the money, of course. And they don't want to hurt each other. And Mayweather will have it so easy to just walk away, right? I mean, he saw Tyson against Jake Paul. Tyson cannot get him. It will not happen, right? So he will just throw a few hands and win after points. That will be the end result of the fight. But nobody wants this. I mean, nobody, like, that's the thing. And I think that's Netflix's fault, that if they go into boxing, they should do this, what they do very good, like really, really pushing events up. And at the same time, as I agree with you, the pre-fights, also the female fights on the card from Jake Paul, were sensational.
Definitely.
I loved that fight. It was like an HBO card where you feel like, yeah, that's a good event here, right? And I feel like that makes it even worse if you have, like, in a way, if you have super good pre-fights, super skilled, right? And then the main fight is total bullshit, what Tyson Mayweather will be. The people will like think like, okay, I'm going home. I mean, what is this here, right? So if you have before boxers that really go for it and want to destroy each other, so that I think is a mistake. So Netflix should not do too much show. They should, if they go into boxing, what I would like actually. Otherwise, it's only the Zone in a way left, and PBC. So it would be nice to have Netflix in the boxing world.
Yeah. I mean, because that event it'd be like a film, and the first and second act are amazing, and it's setting up the third act, and then it just falls apart. It's like, and that's what the impression you leave afterwards. You're like, well, that you can't really say the film is great because the third act fell apart, right? Even though the lead up to it was so good. But as far as like Jake Paul what he was doing, and what I mentioned earlier, that's what inspired me to basically talk Shane Mosley into doing an exhibition match with me, because I said, well, we'll sell it. Well, I'm like the karate master dude. And then one of my instructors was actually going to get me my next degree of black belt if I beat him. Because I said that's the ultimate test of martial arts, proving himself and testing himself, is if he could beat a former world champion. So anyway, that inspired me, and I'm sure many other people as well.